Saturday, November 5th, 2022. No big projects. Get one little thing done that moves things forward in an irreversible way. Lather, rinse, repeat, and projects will get done of their own volition, and you need not punish yourself. Find the love. Okay. Simply transfer the ID RSA keys into location. That is on the LXD-win repo, which is a sort of Noah's Ark of tech I'm building out of LXD containers. I don't have to write everything. The problem there is that I now think I should use different file names than I did in the video I just produced on this topic. So I'm going to regenerate them, the SSH keys. Why not make a video out of it? Sure, that's what you're watching. What are the preparations? Get the Stack Overflow page with a solution that shows how to do it. It's always Jupyter in the middle. But over here, gee, I'm using the keyboard combination in the screen capture program. OBS doesn't get the transition. So let me do the 4-finger swoosh to get over here to where I looked up the word volition to make sure I was using it correctly. And here we have how to specify the private SSH key to use when executing shell command on Git. Well, it's a good question. This person thinks they might be in a rather unusual situation. It is not unusual, not at all. But basically, they want to do the equivalent of specifying what key to use. Anyone who uses the SSH program, which is what I use to create these terminal connections, knows that the SSH command supports a -i parameter or argument, which lets you point to a particular key file. So they're suggesting that here. And someone who has been upvoted to this very high amount, so it's a fairly trusted answer, gives this answer. You just create a file, SSH config, and that's its contents. Problem solved. File name goes in there. ID_RSA.github, that's a little bit strange. I would not have thought of that. And I don't think I'm going to use that if the file names are arbitrary. I will just put pipulate it in the file name, like I was about to on the previous version of this video, but did not do, because I wanted to lean into the strengths of the way things work by default. But now that it's working by default, I am trying to avoid key collisions, key name collisions. Okay, so bullet point, I am creating or recycling or reusing or creating or piggybacking on an existing .ssh directory Windows side. What? An SSH directory Windows side? It goes in c:\users/your username, your Windows username, /.ssh. Very similar to how it works on Windows. I mean, Linux, Unix, to how it works on Linux. I'll go for as simple as possible, right? So Windows works very similarly to Linux in the sense that it has a .ssh directory where you keep your keys root in your home directory as the operating system considers it. And that's one path when you're on Windows, and that is the same as / right, because Linux home username, and that is your Linux username. You know what? It's almost always Ubuntu on this container, this LXD container. So I'm going to say this is the same as home Ubuntu SSH. Those locations are the same. So there is a colliding key concern. That's the colliding key concern. I am addressing the colliding key concern by regenerating a key so that I don't stomp all over any existing keys you've got. In fact, that issue can be illustrated by me opening two Windows Explorers, one over here and one over here. And on the one side, I will drill into my username.ssh, the directory we're talking about. And on the other side, I'll drill into my username in a backup directory I made, backup.ssh. And you can see if get rid of these because they're all unnecessary. They get generated on the fly and can always be regenerated. These are the two keys that I used in the prior video for being able to git clone from an LXD container, because you got to have an identity to git clone. I created an identity. I created these SSH keys, Linux side. And then I put them here. But to do that experiment, I moved my existing ones out of the way. And I need to keep them here for edge use cases and stuff. My original IDRSA private key. So I think I have stuff deployed here and there where I need my private keys in place, even though I've moved mostly onto these two whose names would not conflict with these two that I want to copy over, but they would replace at least this one. So we got to get rid of that name collision possibility. And we do that easily enough by generating a new key value pair. And remember, when we log into this container and we go to the home.ssh, that is the same location as here on Windows, right? So I can generate it here, but it doesn't make sense to generate it here at this point. It's going to be part of a repo. So why not generate it ~repos, and that's LXDWin, the project, which /repos. Oh, did I? Yeah, CD repos. I did something wrong, but ls, one of these is going to be cd LXDWin ls, and I already copied the alt keys in place. If you do a git status, you'll see those are part of the repo. So I'm going to git remove id rsa, git remove id rsa pub, git status. You'll see that they're now deleted from the repo. And I am going to clear, and I'll do ssh-keygen right in this location, because it generates your keys where you are. And for this one, I will give it a unique name that will not collide. And this will be, I guess, it's either Pipulate or LXDWin. It's for this project. I'll keep it for this project, you know, LXDWin. That's the name I'm trying to promote here. ID. Well, actually, it'll be ID RSA LXDWin. Yes. No passphrase, no passphrase. There we go. Now, if we do an ls, you'll see there's these two files in place. A git status will show us that they have been added, or they're not part of anything, not part of it yet. So I can git add ID _*, the two files that have that pattern. Git status, git commit, added keys with non-colliding names, with unique names. All right, chances are very much against someone having a key already with that name in their .ssh directory. So I can check for its existence before I copy it into location, but that is just optional. That would make the install script unnecessarily larger and complex. Chances are I'll just copy it into location, git push. So that actually is going to drop it now onto GitHub. And now we can use that, right? We use that. Remember when I said it's the same location as our actual Windows? Oh, well, now I have to change it a little. The SSH is the same as our Windows area, but also the repos directory is the same too. See, that's shared in common to Windows. I don't even need this backup location anymore. These are the old keys. I'm not going to be using it. Neither am I going to be using the backup SSH location, because this new approach eliminates the need. That was only because collisions might occur and I don't want to lose SSH keys. All right, so anyway, I can go into that repo. I can get the .pub version of it, and I can not double click it because that will load Microsoft Publisher, but I can right click it and go to open with and open it with Notepad. As I pointed out on the last video, the process may vary on Windows 11 because the right click options are rearranged, but I selected all and I copied. All right, again, select all, copy. I guess there's various ways to do that. You can do that, you can do edit, copy, right? All these conventions that work together simultaneously. You can choose your best route. Anywho, the next step is to go to GitHub, and I might have logged in again as myself at GitHub. Yeah, that's my logo, so I need to log out. I also need to remind myself of passwords. Okay, sign in. And I change that to pipulate. Oh, it remembered it. Good. And we go into settings. Settings. Settings are sometimes so hidden. And from settings, we go into SSH and GPG keys. Unverified automatically found. Oh, look at that. It was found in a public repository, so it was unverified. That is fascinating. That's going to be a problem with the new one I'm about to upload too. So we cannot do it that way. That's going to be the case with this next one too. So I'm going to have to regenerate. That was a fascinating discovery. To use a key, well, first it's scanning for that. Isn't that impressive? It's going to protect against some of the most common security problems in putting keys in repos. Now that's actually interesting, because how do I get the keys into location if not transmitting the file from GitHub? I suppose I could encode it or something. I suppose I will encode it or something, right? Now, there's probably different ways. I can invent it myself. It's easy enough to invent solutions to things like this, but it's also pretty easy to say, you know, put SSH key in repo GitHub. There's people talking about this. Yeah, but they're talking about how to add the key to the account, going into settings, just like I showed you. So it's in repo. SSH key in repo. Huh. Boy, this is going to be a tough topic to get help on, because everyone's going to be thinking it's adding the keys to your account, not how to embed them in a repo. That's nuts, Mike. Why would anyone want to do that? And this also is a little surprise in making this video. These are the little gotchas that come up all the time. Now, granted, what I'm doing most often would be a mistake, right? The fact I'm doing this deliberately is definitely the exception and not the rule. So ls, we're not going to be able to use those because I've already git pushed this. So remove ID, and I will do git remove ID underscore asterisk. Git status. So see those keys, those brand new keys I just made have been deleted. So we're clearly using Python as a programming language here, and it's clearly being made available on the machine I'm setting up on the other side. So we have a choice between tools available in Python to encode these keys, or tools available in Linux to do it. So I'm gonna see what happens if I use a simple rot Linux rot. You might think, what are you talking about, Mike? How in the world would rotting Linux have to do with making an SS key not recognizable? Well, it's rot doesn't rotate, the rotate function. In fact, I'm going to search on rotate. Now it's going to talk all about rotating log files and stuff, because that's the main thing you're going to want to rotate, not the characters within. Yeah, this is something where, you know, the crowd that loves awk and sed and awk, those two, you know, pre-programming languages, pseudo-programming, they might be Turing complete for all I know, but especially awk, but AWK, right? I could almost certainly use that, which is built into most Linuxes. But this is a very stripped, bare down Linux of these images that are being created from LXD, Ubuntu, canonical Ubuntu. So I'm not even going to rely on awk being there, although I could find out for curiosity's sake, because this is the terminal to one of those stripped down Linuxes. Is it there? Oh yeah, it is there. I could use awk for this and keep the processing Linux aside. But I think rather I'm going to use a Python rot function because it is so much simpler. Rot 13. Oops. And that should be enough to keep it from being recognized as being an SSH key, as long as I change the file names. So I'll be making the file names what they need to be in location after moving the files. So this is fun and tricky. Let's give it a go. I'm not sure how immediately successful it's going to be, but I guess it starts out from inside of here. We're still in the directory. We just find our command line thing with generating the keys, ssh-keygen. Oh, I think I forgot to do, I'm glad I'm doing it over. I wanted to do uppercase C as an argument with pipulate@gmail.com. So that embeds in the email address into the keys that are generated. And so now the file will once again be lxdwin, no, it's idrsa lxdwin, idrsa lxdwin, no passphrase. And once again, we've got these two files in here, but instead of git adding them, I'm going to go into Jupyter. And you remember how I always keep Jupyter running? And oftentimes I go into a practice directory. I'm going to start a nice fresh practice directory so you don't have to look at a lot of junk, which of course is how I get all the junk. So exacerbating one problem to solve another, such as life. And we create a new untitled document here in practice, and we grab that rot function. Now we're sitting on top of rot 13, and for anyone who hasn't seen a function like this, you well, there should be a way to unrotate it, right? So maybe running it through it again unrotates it. See what it's done? Every character is rotated 13 characters to the right, except for the uppercase ones. It only does the lowercase. It's a rot 13 against lowercase characters. So that was a quick, see ours, and it wraps around at the beginning. Yeah. So I might want one that supports uppercase. Oh, it's built in. Look at that. It's a much better approach. So that was a homegrown approach. And there, that rot 13 to that. And that's much more like it, right? So that's a simple rot 13 function. So how do we load this off of the IDRSA? Well, it's best to avoid path names. So I should have, can I move this? Copy to, move to, that's a bummer. So it's so little code, right? So I should have started this in the LXD to win directory. What's going on? Okay. And I'll start a new notebook here. I'll close that last one. And then I'll start a new one here. And it got created right in that directory. And we can see that same code run again. It's interesting how color coding is taking a while to catch up with it. All right, so now this location has access to these two files. So we are going to, open the context manager. And now we can just use those file names directly, right? So that's IDRSA LXD win dot. Oh, there's one without a dot extension and one with. The one without is the private key as file handle, and write me equals or I guess we'll say data equals FH. You got to get it all out of there. So this is the place where, you know, VS Code shines, because you start to type and it just shows you everything that you can do. And with Jupyter Notebook, sometimes you're lucky to get a pop-up context manager. It doesn't know the dot stuff of FH, or it's slow in catching up with me, something like that. But I'm pretty sure it's read lines. I want to get it as one big thing of text. Read lines is just text without the... So before I commit to any of this, I just need to make sure I remember how to get there, because sometimes, you know, it doesn't flow quite as naturally as in a rigged video that you'll see. This is when you're like, oh, how do you figure stuff out? So we just go data equals fh. Now data, actually we can just print dir of fh. That's how you get all the stuff that's built into the dir object. And you can see that slowdown. That is a weird slowdown that has something to do with Jupyter running on a Linux container in the background. That is a hiccup, a mysterious system slowdown. Perhaps it's because I'm screen recording. Oh, there's me hitting my tab. It finally caught up with that. But here's all the things you can do. So write lines. It's actually read lines. Yeah, read lines. Now the problem here is I'm going to be showing a private key, but again, it's one I'm giving out in a repo, so I guess I shouldn't be too paranoid about it. Data equals fh.readlines. Call it as a method, and now you're going to be sitting on top of a object called data. That's the private key in there, and you'll see it's a series of lines with the line return actually embedded into it because of the way we read it in. Now to make it not recognizable, you can rot each line. And you can do that outside the function. So for line in data, in fact, you can transform it in place. This is a great opportunity for a list comprehension, right? And we can just do it right here. List comprehension, x for x in data. And so that will be the same exact thing initially. But now you can use this magic line here because x is exposed. And that is our disguised key. It's probably not recognizable as a key, but you need to run rot13 again on it to decode it, right? Is it recognizable as a key? Perhaps. Perhaps it's got a bit of that signature to it. But it'll be interesting to see if we can slip that through on GitHub, how long that will last, whether Microsoft's GitHub's algorithm for spotting keys in repos will be able to, out a rot13's private key. This fun video. All right, so what do you do with that? Well, you saw write lines, right? So you're sitting on top of this. You don't need to be looking at the output, but we can reverse this. This, by the way, had an implied R in there for read mode, right? So we reverse this and we put the W in there for write mode. And we are going to write lines. Write lines equals write lines. We are going to file handle write lines from data, if I have that correctly, and then we should have a file containing this same thing in here. Let's take a look. We should see it magically appear here if I remember how this works correctly. Oh, it wrote it as the same file name. Oh no, it didn't. Write lines. It just wrote it back into itself. Darn it. Okay, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create a new file name using the contents to write into that new file name. So hopefully I didn't ruin my key. Yeah, I probably ruined my key. There's no reason that wouldn't ruin the key. All right. How many times can you create a new key. RMID underscore asterisk. Create the key. Boom. Oh, I thought I deleted it. Control C. Enter file, save the key. Oh, it's writing them into my, it's not doing it locally. How did these get here then? And did I nuke an important old IDRSA key of my own? Talk about file name collisions, right? Jesus. Oh, I didn't give it a file name up here. Generating the parent. Here's where we give the file name. ID RSA underscore LXDWin. Enter. 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 LS. There they are. ID RSA LXDWin. All right. Now we can once again. Now I'll restart kernel, and clear all outputs. It's always a good time to do that. I got to put that on a keyboard shortcut, by the way. So we do that, and we reassure ourselves we have the ROT13 sitting there, and that the server is responsive in the background. We do this again. We show this. Now that didn't assign it to anything. That's just sitting there in memory. That's what I'm trying to write back out to a file. So that goes here, and we give it a new name that won't be recognizable, and we'll call it priv. And we won't give it any file extensions or anything. You know what? We'll let it be known it's a text file. Priv.text as file handle, and then we do for line in, or in fact, you know, to make it, we can go lines equals for line in lines, and then we use a file handle write. File handle dot write. I'm not sure if it's write or write line. Let's try hitting the tab key and see what it suggests. Will it catch up with me? Oh, there are downsides to the approach I'm taking. So there's write, write through, and write lines. So I guess I could just do write lines on this one and not loop through it. That would make sense. So you don't even need the for loop. It's was it with an underscore? I'm letting you see the videos as, yeah, write lines without an underscore. Write through uses an underscore. Write lines doesn't use an underscore. Go figure. Write lines, lines. Why write an iteration thing when you don't have to? Yeah, okay, we're just doing untitled, that's fine. And so now we should see priv.text appear over here the moment we write that. There's priv.text, and if we double click that, we can look at it in here and see that it is the ROT13 version of the private key. All right, so let's do that now. And now that we've done that for the private key, we can delete it here. And we're going to do the same thing for the, oh, we have to make sure we can reverse it. Going through the same function reverses it. So here we're going to load it. And we can just write data. Oh yeah, we didn't reverse it. We need to use the codec on it. Begin open SSH private key, and there it is. It's reversed back out. So the ROT13 process is reversible. We've just demonstrated that to ourselves. So our approach is valid. But what I want to do at this point is the private key to have the same process up here. We'll get rid of this to get rid of confusion. Again, rename it. That's weird. All right, so anyway, .pub, and now we're gonna call this one pub, and there is pub that just appeared, and we no longer need this one. And let's go over here and git add them. And this is now the subject of my video. I'm not going to take this all the way to using these keys because I'm going to let this bake for a day or so. I have other stuff to do, but I need to see whether Git recognizes these as keys. So git status, git add pub.txt, git add priv.txt, and this untitled document should be part of the repo, but not with the name untitled. So we just call that ROT13. And then before we commit it, it's sometimes good to do kernel, restart kernel, and clear all outputs. And then hit a save there a few times. Make sure it's saved so that, save it like that after the numbers disappeared, just in case, because you want to make sure that you're Git committing a nice clean version for when you look at it again later. Git add. Does it not see it? No, it did see it, just hitting the tab. Things are slow. Things are slow. Not 13 keys. Call it what it is. Git push. And now I suppose we could go over here to where I'm logged in with GitHub. No, I'm logged into to this. Oh, interesting. Yeah. I guess there is one last step for this video, and that will be the reversal of the public key process. We need the public key in its original form. Oh, it's not even sitting there in the notebook in memory like I thought it might be because I restarted the kernel and everything. So we're going to import the codec, and then we are going to open. This is the one that writes it. Where we want to open the one that reads it. Pub.text. Now here's an interesting thing. That's looking at it in correct format, but you can't just copy that to that, because that is a Python list here. Even though it's one line in the list, it's still a Python list. So we can grab the 0th element in the list, and we can even use a print statement on that. Notice the single tick marks around that. Still another thing that could go wrong here, and the \n, all things that could go wrong. So by sending it through the print statement, we now have a very correct public key that's been through the ROT function in and out. Remember, it doesn't even exist anymore in its original form. So this was loading it out of, you can see I only loaded the library, only loaded this one that does the read, and did a little bit of manipulation to show the key in its correct form. And oh, I did not copy it correctly. Yeah, so it's hard to do sometimes out of a browser, out of Jupyter. There it is. All right, we confirm it's a good-looking public key, and we say LXDWin, right? LXDWin is the reason this key is here, so that a user exists that can clone things from around the internet, right? They want to clone things from GitHub and stuff. They need to be a GitHub user to clone from GitHub, and to do it without being challenged for a password, they need a key, a public key registered with that account. So that's what this is about. That's what this pipulate user is here for. They're going to be able to do Git cloning from a local container you pull down using, it's mikelev.in/ux Mike Levinix, and it'll bring you here. And you can just read it. It tells you copy and paste this entire thing. You right click, you copy, you drop it into a .bat file. New text document. You name it install.bat. You make sure you're really changing the file extension. It's easy for you to not. You edit it with, I guess you can just hit edit. It depends on your machine. There's probably an open with option, but I know on my machine hitting edit will bring up Notepad, where you can paste in that script, save it, close it, and then I believe you can just run it. You can just run it. You might have to run as an administrator. I forget, but I think just running it normal now will get the job done. And that'll give you a local install of Jupyter server in which you can run Jupyter Notebook, and it's purely Linux way that I'm doing here. This is really true Linux. If you were to go to the terminal, I'm going to prove it to you in different ways, but do new terminal. The terminal that pops up here is Ubuntu at Jupyter at ~/repos LXDWin, right? ls, there's the same view of the repo as you get is if you're in a Linux terminal. Same Linux terminal as this one over here for all intents and purposes. Technically different terminals, but to the same Linux environment in a container under Windows. Containerized Linux right there. So this was a housekeeping video to keep public and private keys in a GitHub repo. Not your typical video, not the kind people want to put out, but it really doesn't control access to anything except this Git account's ability to get cloned from GitHub, which is what I need for this project. Thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again soon. Don't forget to subscribe.